Senate for concurrence. The chair recognizes the majority leader, calls up House Bill 1814, printer's number 3372 on page 1 of supplemental calendar A. Will the House agree the bill is agreed to? The clerk will read the title and a brief description of the bill.
This bill requires public school entities to restrict student cell phone possession and use during the school day and school buildings.
This bill has been considered on 3 different days and agreed to. The question is, shall the bill pass the House finally? On that question, chair recognizes the maker of the bill, gentlelady from Allegheny County, Representative Steele.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Colleagues, in a time of great political polarization, there is an issue that spans the divide. Democrat, Republican, Independent, anyone with eyes on kids can see that something is very wrong. The mental, physical, and academic health of children has plummeted in conjunction with unfettered access to smartphones. The research is reflective of this. The research is abundant and clear. I rise today to bring your urgent attention to what has become a massive public health crisis. As you are all acutely aware, under the United States Constitution, the country's most foundational document, the primary authority for public health is given to the states. The states. It is our duty as state legislators to act, given the overwhelming evidence of harm being inflicted upon our children. Many are attempting to amplify this crisis. Here is a statement by Pennsylvania's teachers. They say they are losing the battle for your kids' attention to smartphones. Here is a statement by the Pennsylvania school safety officers. They say they are struggling to keep your children safe because of smartphones. Here is a report from the National Institute of Health. They say that the white matter in your kid's brain isn't forming correctly. Here is a statement by the Surgeon General's office yet again, calling for us to act. They say the compilation of research is alarming. Earlier this year, we had a landmark settlement showing that Meta and YouTube are putting apps on your kids' phones that they are knowingly designing to addict young brains and hold them captive for life. While there are many steps that must be taken to correct course for our children, perhaps the most obvious one is the subject of this bill. We've got to get smartphones out of schools so the kids can learn and play and talk and laugh, negotiate conflict, make eye contact, be curious, be kids again, free from the most addictive and harmful device that humanity has ever been subjected to. We must act in the face of a public health crisis of this magnitude. Pennsylvania's House of Representatives should stand up today and hit back for our children. I urge a yes vote. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Chair thanks the maker of the bill. On that question, chair recognizes the gentleman from Lebanon, Representative Diamond.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in support of House Bill 1814. Colleagues, when it comes to education in Pennsylvania, we have a mandate. That mandate is Article 3, Section 14 of the Pennsylvania Constitution, which says, and I quote, "The General Assembly shall provide for the maintenance and support of a thorough and efficient system of public education to serve the needs of the Commonwealth. Colleagues, ask yourself, does a cell phone in a kid's hand serve the needs of the Commonwealth when they're in school? No, it does not. Does a cell phone in a kid's hand make our public education system efficient? No, it does not. Does a cell phone in a kid's hand make our public education system thorough? In some limited cases, and they're accepted out by this bill, a cell phone might make it more thorough for a kid. But I would argue, even in those cases, Madam Speaker, a more task-oriented, dedicated device would be better than a cell phone. And Madam Speaker, as we've been hearing bills today, I've looked around the room, and I've seen many of my own colleagues with their own heads buried in the cell phone. Look, if we as adults can't pay attention here, how do we expect children to be paying attention in school? These devices have no place, Madam Speaker, in a formal education process. Vote yes on House Bill 1814. Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Delaware County, Representative Vitale, Majority Chair of Environmental Resources.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I rise in opposition to House Bill 1814. What this bill would do would be to prohibit students from using cell phones during the school day while on school property. And I would suggest to you that the real issue here is not what the proper policy for cell phones in schools is, but who should be making that policy. We have 500 individual school districts. We have large school districts and small school districts. We have rich school districts and poor school districts. We have urban school districts, we have rural school districts, we have suburban school districts. And the question is, who should be making the decisions in each of these 500 school districts? Who knows their individual school districts the best? Is it the governor sitting in his office in the Capitol? Or is it elected school board members who live in the community and who interact with these students? You know, this is about local control. This issue, and I understand the governor called for this in his budget address, legislation like this to be passed. And I know one of our staffers mentioned that it polls at 80%. So clearly voting for this is good politics. It's good politics for us. It's good politics for the governor. But the real question is it good policy? My school district, for example, the Haverford Township School District, they have a policy. 420 of the 500 school districts already have policies. So the question is, why are we doing this? Why are we doing this if 420 out of 500 already have policies? My school district, for example, its policy is not to prohibit cell phones for the entire day on the entire school grounds, but rather to prohibit cell phones during instructional times. That's a choice they've made. That's because they feel that's best for this suburban middle-class school district. Other school districts can make different choices, and we all could change those choices as circumstances and experience dictate. But to have this one-size-fits-all, this, talking point popular policy, it may be popular, but it's the wrong decision from a policy perspective, and I urge a no vote.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentleman from Allegheny, Representative Kuzma.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I rise in support of House Bill 1814, which would remove cell phones from our kids' classrooms. I'm the father of 2 daughters myself, and I don't see there being any purpose in having social media, a platform for bullying, or a platform for cheating in our classrooms. Studies have shown that by removing them, we are minimizing cheating, improving our test scores, and minimizing bullying. Not only for those 3 reasons am I in favor of it, but I'm also in favor of reducing the amount of time the children of this Commonwealth spend on social media. A study in 2024 showed that in a 1-week period, 13-year-old girls are exposed to nudity 24% of the time on Instagram. 24% of 13-year-old girls are exposed to nudity on Instagram. In addition, 37% of 13-year-old girls receive sexual advances in a 1-week period. And 17% of 13-year-old girls are exposed to self-harm content. There is no reason to allow cell phones in classrooms which promotes cheating, promotes bullying, and lowers our test scores. And there is no reason for our children to be exposed to addictive social media, sexual advances, nudity, and self-harm content. That is why I'm in favor of House Bill 1814, and I ask for an affirmative vote. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Chair thanks the gentleman. Chair recognizes the gentlelady from Lancaster, Representative Rivera, on final passage of House Bill 1814.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. This bill keeps me up at night, and here's why. Effective teaching is an art that deserves complete and undivided attention and uninterrupted attention from our kids. And many schools do have a policy in place for this problem with cell phones. When this bill was first circulated, my issue under my 30 years of teaching had to do with local control. School boards do in fact make policies, and they are expected to be followed by our administrators and staff. Creating a criminal record, I was worried about what happens when we break this law. Do we create a criminal record for students simply because they have a cell phone? And I'm not a fan of the word ban in most circumstances. And so allowing staff to allow phones at determined times is one of the things that I've been most in favor of. Those were my concerns when this bill first circulated. There have been some amendments to it. And to answer some of my concerns, this bill does not solve the misuse of phones. That's up to families who provide the phone to teach the user of the phone. So education is critically important to the use of a phone, the use of any device. What I also think might happen is that 504s and IEP plans, behavioral plans, will increase because we do have specialized behavioral plans that require a device to be used. I do think that the task of teachers still policing cell phones will still exist. However, it is expected that administration will follow through with the consequences. I want this out of teachers' hands as much as possible because, again, the art of teaching is the most important thing in a child's school day. I have been watching this bill evolve, and as much as I think it shouldn't be legislation and that it should be in school policy, here it is before us. And what I have to do as I analyze this bill is analyze my ability to vote for it. Have I first thought about whether I want my own children to be in a no-phone learning environment? And secondly, if I'm a teacher, do I want to teach in a no-phone use environment? And the answer to both of those questions is yes. So while I think there's a lot of work to be done on this bill, in its current form, allowing for local control, allowing for a lot of exceptions, and allowing for the approval of principals and superintendents to allow limited circumstances and duration, I don't see it changing very much of what's already going on in a lot of our school districts. I don't like that 9 through 12 is lumped into this because we're raising adults and that need to be well-versed on how to use it and when not to use it and have that self-control instilled. But given the evolution of this bill, I think I will be a yes vote on this, and I do look forward to more of us contributing to what the actual causes are for the cell phone abuse versus what the school rules should be. Thank you.
Chair thanks the gentlelady. Chair recognizes the gentlelady from Allegheny, Representative Mihalik.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I have the privilege of representing 3 outstanding school districts in Allegheny and Washington counties: Bethel Park, Upper St. Clair, and the Peters Township School District. My 3 kids attend the Peters Township School District, 2 of which are teenagers, and this is a very hot topic of discussion in my house. Every parent out there is navigating how to use these devices. When do you introduce them? How do you adapt your rules to changing technology? And how do you adapt the rules to kids of different ages? What works in our house might not work for the kids down the street or the family on the other side of the state. What works in our house today might not work in our house next year when my oldest starts high school. And that is where I am struggling to support this one-size-fits-all bill that takes away the power of our local school districts and instead makes the decision for them. Over the last few months, I have gotten to see firsthand how much thought and work goes into the decision of how to handle these devices in school. In Peters Township, members of our local school board assembled a parent working group to tackle the issue alongside teachers and the administration. Each detail of the cell phone policy is carefully considered, and parents are able to give feedback and share their experiences with their own kids. That's how Upper St. Clair and Bethel Park were able to come up with their own cell phone policies as well, by listening to the families in those districts. And I believe that is how this decision should be made, at the local level, with the people closest to the issues, closest to the families and the students. I trust our school boards to make these decisions. When the technology changes, I trust our school boards to be able to pivot much more quickly than Harrisburg ever could and address those changes as they come up. To be clear, I am not advocating for our kids to freely scroll the internet while they are supposed to be learning. I don't think anyone believes that. Kids can't scroll TikTok and learn algebra at the same time. I am advocating for local control as intended by the Pennsylvania Constitution. A few months ago, we did an online survey in the district where we asked constituents to weigh in on the idea of a cell phone ban, and I can confidently say that the residents of the 40th district trust our school boards to make the decision, and so do I. I appreciate the thought that went into this bill. I know the sponsor and I have kids around the same age, and I respect her tremendously. This is a difficult issue for us to tackle as parents, as lawmakers. I simply believe our school districts can tackle the issue without Harrisburg getting in the way. And one more thing to two of my most difficult constituents, Petra and Nyla, you can stop bugging me now. Mom voted no. Thank you.
Chair recognizes the gentlelady from Monroe, the Majority Chair of the Aging Committee, Representative Madden.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. Madam Speaker, I respectfully rise in opposition to HB 1814. I understand that cell phones in schools is an issue, and I understand that we've allowed our school districts to handle them the way they see fit. For me, it comes down to being the parent of a junior high school child and a middle school child on 9/11. And when my kids were in school on 9/11, they didn't have cell phones, but they had beepers. And when my oldest son beeped me 911, I didn't care that they said, keep your kids in school, they're safer there. I thought if we're gonna die, we're all gonna die together, because we were under attack. And then I went to Parkland for the 4th anniversary of the Marjorie Stoneman Douglas school shooting. And I went to every single vigil. There were a total of 5 vigils around the 4th anniversary. And I spoke to crying parents whose last words were to their children as they called them scared from under the desk. And so I'm on this side of the argument. Until we can keep our children safe in school, I want them to have their cell phone. I want them to be able to call their parents for help or simply to say goodbye. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Chair thanks the gentlelady. Agreeable to the provisions of the Constitution, the yeas and nays will now be taken. Members will proceed to vote. Have all the members voted? Have all the members voted?
Have all the members voted? Clerk will record the vote on the final passage of the bill. The yeas are 126, the nays 75. Majority required by the Constitution. Having voted in the affirmative, the bill passes finally, and the clerk will present the same to the Senate for concurrence.